some friends are some friends are new but have been on their own journey of meditation and, let's say, spirituality. So I just want to say thank you for being here, and also thank you to parents for requesting this year-long journey of meditation and mindfulness. Because of the work that we've done together, you've shared that it's helped so much, and that is why we're going into this endeavor. So part of the reason we're doing this is because we know that when we do something consistently, we experience change. And I've been bringing this into the parent classes lately about reflecting back on when you started doing work around conscious parenting and where you are now, and noticing how much you've changed. Well, after doing a school year long journey of meditation, I can guarantee something, that transformation occurs and more consciousness comes in. So what I wanted to first bring is the fact that mindfulness, on its own is something that helps us to be aware of the actual moment that we're in, right? Mindfulness helps us to be in touch with what's called the as is, this very moment. Mindfulness helps us to actually have more energy because we're not scattered and following a million different pathways that are living all around us. We're able to be completely present. Meditation helps develop that mindfulness. So mindfulness can be just an intellectual idea and thought, and we could be like, "Oh yeah, I get it." When I reach out for my teacup, I am feeling how my finger wraps around the handle of the cup. I am feeling the warmth underneath the cup when I hold it. This is mindfulness. We can do that in our activity to help develop it to become more consistent. So we'll talk about things like that and experiment with things like that, working with the outer world. And then there's the mindfulness of the inner world, where we really get something juicy going on, because we start to realize that so much of our path we put into the attention of the outer world. And if we're not turning in and noticing what's going on inside, actually real transformation cannot occur. So we start to become mindful not only of these actions, this picking up the teacup, the way that we're sitting, and all of the things in our physical world, the rustling of the leaves blowing in the wind right now. We become mindful of all of the things on the outer. And then, how did they affect me inside? What thoughts and feelings are occurring based on the sensory experiences that I have? So when we start to do this, something starts to happen. As I said, the word transformation, transformative presence is the name of this journey. This is what starts to blossom in us. And sometimes, depending on our lives, it's more work than other times. And that's just the way it is. Our brain function moves at lightning speed. We use the brain to think. The brain doesn't rest easily. There's always thought flowing. So if we start to take this outer world and say, all right, I'm going to take some time to slow things down and just sit here. And then when I sit here, I'm going to start to turn in. I'm going to start to notice something. First, I'll be like, oh, I'm so still. And then I'll start to say, I have to go do the laundry. What happened this morning again? Oh my gosh, I should have never said that to that person. Oh, did I call the dentist? Oh, I have to pay that bill. And whoa, you see, we get so flooded that it's like a crash. Everything starts to just bombard us, right? And then we start to get fidgety in our body and we start to move and we start to almost like distract ourselves from what's going on. This is really what happens with a typical habit pattern. We distract ourselves right back into the outer world, create more clutter, so on and so on. This is what happens. But here we're saying, I'm going to learn to stop my body once in a while. I'm going to learn to turn in, notice my thoughts. And I'm not saying that we're here ultimately to stop our thoughts. But ultimately, what we are going to learn is to notice stillness and movement. And when we notice stillness and movement, something starts to happen. We start to rediscover something that we're born with, and that's awareness. So our awareness moves with us. And often I'll use the example of a surfer on a surfboard. The surfer moves along on the waves without fighting. But the surfer is definitely not denying the wave. The surfer's using the wave to move along in presence. So let's begin by doing a little meditation. And this is just a grounding meditation first. So you'll see these beautiful crystals around each part of the table. Feel free to grab one. Whatever one calls, doesn't matter, even if you just randomly reach out and take one. Or if you're comfortable without a crystal, you can just gaze down toward the ground. Either way, the crystal is or the rock is going to be something that helps you anchor in. So you can take it and use it. And this is a beginning meditation called shamatha, which Rudolf Steiner also taught on his journey toward enlightenment, the 6 subsidiary exercises. This is one of them. And we're working with controlling thought. You'll often hear it as the monkey mind. This mind that I was just talking about that is getting pushed around by all the thoughts and following, pushed and pulled. So here what we're going to do is place, just like if you take your arm and you bring your arm out in front of you and make a fist and you look, just about at that point, you're going to drop that crystal right there in front of you so that it's pretty comfortable that when you look down toward the tip of your nose and past it, you see that crystal. You might need to adjust it. That's okay. And even if, by the way, you know, the cushions, how they're, feel free to move about in the room to find your space so that you feel okay, super comfortable and you can drop in. So you're gazing toward the crystal. You allow yourself to find your posture. And as we go along in once our classes officially start, I'll go through this really step by step about the posture. But here, as we drop in, we're just going to know that as best we can, the spine is nice and straight so that energy flows through. Crown of the head is lifting up toward the ceiling. The hands are resting gently on the knees or the thighs. The tongue is resting on the roof of the mouth behind the front 2 teeth. And as we breathe, we notice the jaw. Any tension in the jaw, we release. So separate the teeth slightly. And as the teeth are separated slightly, you're inhaling through the nose and then exhaling gently through the mouth. And as we start to move toward our meditation, we have this thought. May all beings be happy, and may all beings be free from suffering. And from my efforts to practice in this way, countless beings benefit. May it be. So you'll begin your meditation gazing down toward your crystal. Allow yourselves to inhale a nice full breath and just really simply in your mind count to 10. And then as you exhale, very simply in your mind, count to 10. Continue with this breath. Breathe in through the nose, counting to 10. And then breathe out through the mouth, counting 10. Gazing at the crystal. And wherever you are, counting to 10 one more time, inhaling and exhaling. And let go of your attention on the counting and turn your attention toward the crystal or stone. Bring your mind and all of your thoughts to that crystal. Think only about what you're seeing. If a story stems from the crystal, a memory, a thought about how your child loves the crystal or how you had an experience with that color, bring yourself back to simply looking at the crystal. Examine the shape, the color. Simply keep your mind on the crystal. Now ask yourself, where is my mind right now? With no judgment at all. Notice where your mind is. Has it wandered many, many times? Did it stay with thoughts on the crystal? No judgment at all. Allow yourselves to take a nice full breath in. And then a breath out. Hold the breath out for as long as you can. Experience a little spaciousness. And then inhale. Exhale. So right there, we'll let go of the meditation. And some great meditation teachers will say, the greatest meditator is a meditator who knows when to stop. Sometimes we think, oh, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to take like an hour or, 2 hours or whatever. And then we find ourselves just absolutely frustrated. In a meditative path that I train in Tibetan, you taught at a very advanced level of meditating, break your meditation at 10 minutes. Don't fall into laziness and dullness, and don't fall into agitation. Agitation is when the mind starts to get super active. And then the dullness is when you start to go into this place and you feel so relaxed, and people would be like, but I love when that happens. But that's not really meditating, right? When we lose awareness. But there's nothing wrong with it as long as we're noticing, right? So we'll constantly bring ourselves back to noticing. I wanted to share an excerpt based on what we're doing from Steiner and his words here from How to Know Higher Worlds. So Steiner's talking about guarding against criticizing thoughts that come into our mind. And he says we have to try to practice our meditation with reverence and devotion. Each moment that we spend becoming aware of whatever derogatory, judgmental, and critical opinions still remain in our consciousness brings us closer to higher knowledge. We advanced even more quickly when in such moments we have filled our consciousness with admiration, respect, and reverence for the world and life. Anyone experienced in these things knows that such moments awaken forces in us that otherwise remain dormant. Filling our consciousness in this way opens our spiritual eyes. We begin to see things around us that we could not see before. We begin to realize that previously we saw only a part of the world surrounding us. We begin to see our fellow humans in a different way than we did before. So this part, I think, that I pulled from Steiner's words is a big part of why people give up on meditating, because of self-criticism, even if we don't realize that's what it is. A lot of times people will be like, it's just not for me. It's just not for me, because it's too frustrating, right? That's what we get caught in. When we start to come back again and again to the naturalness of what it actually is, it's just learning and allowing ourselves to see what is happening in the moment. We train ourselves to constantly distract ourselves, constant motion. So for a couple of minutes a day, part of our journey is going to be to commit, whether it's a few times a day or whether it's just one time a day. It's going to be commit to say, I'm going to become still, and I'm going to turn in, and I'm going to notice what's happening in there. This is the beginning of opening up to the meditative journey. And when we start to do this, you will have times that you feel frustrated or feeling like, gosh, I can't do that. I was telling the group yesterday morning, um, I was getting ready to come to school. I haven't been in that kind of rhythm, right? Things were happening. My dog's not well, some chaos going on. Yes, my kids are out of the house. So it's a big difference, you know, but, chaos happens. Life. I could start to say, oh, now my children are out of the house and I have all this space. Oh, but then I get distracted by this and that. The distractions are going to come no matter what. So the thing is, will we follow the distraction like we're like a leaf blowing in the wind? Or will we be able to still stabilize ourselves? And I told the group yesterday, I sat down and I meditated. I noticed my swirl of, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do that. Get my glue, and glue myself down. Then I got my body down and I sat and I still noticed, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, I gotta do this, I gotta do that. So I started to bring my awareness to my breath. I started to say a mantra in my mind because that's something that helps me anchor. We'll learn about that. And then suddenly I was meditating. I had let go of following the swirl. The swirl sometimes is referred to as samsara. It means that we're following the confusion in the world instead of following our wisdom. I go and choose only wisdom all the time and forget about the relative world, my dog that is sick or my daughter calling from college or having to put garbage out. No, I am here. I'm not floating on a cloud. But the more that I take just a couple of minutes here and there to do this, the more I am able to do those things with some joy and more ease and more presence, even the really difficult things. So I think, does somebody have a question? Or
I have a question.
yes,
So, right?
yes.
So quieting the swirl, and you mentioned that you can't really forget about the things that really need doing, right? Because we do live in the world.
Yes,
there
we
are
do.
responsibilities and deadlines and all of these things. And probably it could be universal, but I'll just speak for myself that there's a worry about, so it's clear to me that being frenetic about all the things that need doing is quite counterproductive in the real world, as well as for our own health.
Yep.
So that's clear. But I find myself worried about remembering to do the things that are necessary. The garbage is one thing because we know the day and time and it's got to go out.
Rhythm. We love rhythm here.
Rhythm. We don't like smell. We don't like bugs.
Very practical.
But the strategic things that are sort of between now and whenever that do need to get done that might not have immediate reminders, if you get into the headspace of letting some of those things go, there's the worry on the other side that you might really let them go. So how do you think about that?
Oh, I think about that in so many ways. I'm going to go absolutely to the far edge here first and just say I'm not expecting anybody to, to do this or even buy into it yet, right? But all of the things that arise, even our children, this is really, I guess, maybe daring for me to say this, are empty at apparent, coming and going. like waves on the ocean, even us and all our things and our to-do list. So right away for me, because I've been practicing this a long time, it's like a dream. They're all, but I am very grounded, by the way. Like I have like a lot of like, anchor here. I'm like, yeah, boundaries, right here. Not, I don't think floating on a cloud at all. However, I do know that all of these things come and go. They're, phenomena, and they don't have any inherent existence, right? Now, that's like really lofty, right? But I keep it in my mind. I say to parents sometimes, I say it's like looking at things with two eyes, right? That's the ultimate, right? The ultimate is like, this is impermanent. Those to-do lists, the bills, the things that I have to do, even the garbage and all that comes and it goes like the waves on the ocean. And then I have the relative, but I got to do it. Most of these things I have to do. Some of them maybe not when I really look at it, but most of these things are things that I have to accomplish, right? So in order to do that and to not have it overwhelm us, I have said the best method is to find a very special book or notebook that you keep in one place. And when it comes into your mind, and for meditators just starting, you could even have that book near you. And when that thought comes, you scribble it down. Do not use a computer, because then you'll be surfing on something, because that's what we do, not you, us. If I put a computer there to do that kind of method, I'd be like, oh, let me check my text. Oh, who messaged me? No, you know. So to have a notebook and then you're sitting and it's like that thought and you just put it there and you put it there. You're like, now I don't have to be afraid I'm going to forget you.
Right.
Because that's what happens. Because then it will pull us. And really, when it comes down to it, what this is all a play of distraction that is trying to bring us into a pattern that is more familiar with chaos and confusion than wisdom, right? So we find a home for it.
And the filter that you get from the feeling of wisdom and the connection of wisdom helps you potentially prune out some of the things that you wrote down in the first place.
That's right. I have in parent-child classes a few years ago, I did this for a few years actually. I had parents every time I said to them, take a day. I was daring back then. Now I'll say like a couple of hours, right? And put your phone away in a cabinet. And every time you want to use your phone, you're like, take a notebook, write down why you wanted to use your phone. At the end of the day, parents have said more than 50% of the things that they wrote down, they crossed off and were like, waste of time. I didn't need to know the definition of that. I didn't need to, I could wonder about it. I didn't need to know what was going on in the latest political blah, blah, blah. Cross out. These were all things looking to drag me further into samsara and take up space of my energy that I could use for my life. So that's the recommendation. Any other thoughts, questions? I saw maybe something come up in the chat. Oh, thank
I
you.
have a simple question. If you're wanting to be present, but wanting to keep a time, like I'm gonna meditate for 10 minutes, for 2 minutes, do you put a timer on? Do you have a watch in the back room? Like, how do you keep track of that?
Yep, you could put a timer on, especially at the beginning. After a while, it might I know, like for me, I have like almost like, like if you sleep a certain rhythm, you pretty much know you wake up at 5:30 every day or 6 o'clock every day. Your body clock starts to really align. That could happen, but absolutely. And still me, if I have, say, a client at 10 o'clock and I just had a client at 8:30 to 9, so I have 9:30 to 10, and I want to get at least 10 minutes in of a meditation, I'll time it so I don't go overboard, right? So those are times where you can use your phone and even set it away from you. I'm just saying, I think we could all pretty much discipline ourselves not to be surfing on the phone for 10 minutes. So I don't want to, I'm not, saying that we can't do that. So you could even just have the phone, put a 10-minute timer on, put it next to you. Don't have the screen facing up, flip it down, and then just sit and do 10 minutes. That's it. And then you'll notice that on your timer, you might have that, because you do a 10-minute meditation all the time, it's always on 10 minutes. Like, okay, just turn on your timer, have it on your screen so that it's right there for you. Yeah. And don't overwhelm yourselves. You could, 3 minutes of meditating is better than none. 3 minutes of meditating every day is very different from not meditating for 3 minutes every day. And I want to present it in the way that my husband's friend, Yogi Charu, I had taken meditation classes with him for a long time, and he had taught about I've told the stories about him to some of you. He had a teacher who they used to do intense trainings. He had done cave retreats and been in intensive retreats for many years. But his teacher, when he was in a class, his teacher used to have them put a cup of water on top of their heads and sit for hours. And if the student's cup fell, the teacher would leave, but they couldn't trick the teacher because the water would be gone. So even if they put the cup back on their head, the teacher would look and see who still had the water in the cup. Yeah. So that was intense, right? He'd have to work with stillness of body. We don't necessarily learn that way, but you could experiment with things like that. Put a paper cup on top of your head and see how long you can work with body stillness. When your body is that still, is your mind starting to follow? There are different things that you could do here. So doing that for 3 minutes a day is better than not. Doing that for 10 minutes a day is better than not, and so on and so on and so on. So how do we break patterns? We start to understand that our ego is going to get involved, and our ego is going to make every excuse. Our ego is going to jump in and be like, this isn't doing anything. You're not changing. Look, you just got angry at your daughter. Oh, forget it. I'm not meditating. Or, oh, I'm just so tired. I just want to look at Instagram. I don't want to sit down and just think of nothing. Because looking at my mind is an Anam where it's like looking in a garbage can. I don't want to look in the garbage can. So that's why people run away from it. But the more we look in the garbage can, and the more we're just like, yeah, oh gosh, I was thinking, my thoughts were trashy today. Trash. I was thinking terrible things. I was jealous. I was angry. I was hurtful. All these things. Yeah, I'm looking at it. Looking at it starts to create change. We're starting to peel away layers that we were covered in, and getting to the truth, which is true nature. So I have, today is a short class, and I made some notes because I was like, gosh, it's so hard to just, these are 2 sample classes. I know, some of us will have a whole year, but if I could say something that you could all take with you, whether you continued or not, it's just to know that you have this calm wisdom that lives in you and you were born with it. And you're also born with, let's say, a karma. And then the fact that you're born into a certain family and a certain society and a certain way of being, and being in New York. I was born in Queens, New York, busy, crowded, fast, right? This is going to be part of me. If Walt Whitman says there was a child went forth, and what the child saw, the child became, right? I'm paraphrasing, right? I was born into busyness. A lot of my life is so I could keep on going with that pattern, or I can get back to my original source, that the calm wisdom. And I've had to work, right, at peeling the layers just from the nature of what surrounded me. I get back to the wisdom every time I sit down and every time I acknowledge the fact that it's there. So Steiner's reverence that he mentions, right? To be able to look at ourselves with non-judgment and to get to this fresh place of total acceptance is something that a lot of us lose. It's something that our children deserve to have. And the way that they'll have it the most is by seeing if you have it. Noticing your wisdom. Getting back to the nature of our mind. So neuroscience points to the fact that we are in mental autopilot. The fact that, like I was saying earlier, we usually will sit down, turn and look at our mind, and we'll find fast. When we start to realize that too is normal, and we start to accept it and don't think we're broken, but just think, oh, my brain thinks. And when you start to meditate, you learn. And even after you meditate for a very long time, depending on what's going on in your life or what was happening that day, or how much sleep you had or didn't have, how much sugar you took in, how much stress you had, your mom is sick, da 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 da. Your mind might be very crowded, and they say it's like when you stop and you look, your thoughts at first are like a waterfall. Power of a waterfall, right? And then you practice. Days go by, weeks go by, months go by, years go by. Sometimes then it's like a rainstorm. It's not a waterfall anymore. And then the rainstorm turns into a regular rain, and then a light rain, and then a drizzle, and then clear open sky, and then a waterfall again. Right? Unless we all of a sudden become enlightened, right? And we're in clear open sky all the time, which is rare. So it's like, hey, wait a minute. I'm not going to become enlightened by next year. Maybe, but I don't know. Probably not. But are we going to change and start to notice and accept what goes on inside of ourselves, which makes us calmer, happier, and also then able to recognize what's going on with our children and our partners and the people around us? That we all just have our waterfalls, and we get in the stir and the wind. We get pushed around. Most of us are not stopping and turning and looking inside to create more space. So I'll pause one more time. A question or thought?
Difference between mindfulness and being present. Is it
It's a synonym.
okay? But it's pretty much the same.
Yes. Presence, words sometimes, especially in Tibetan, could be, they could take on a lot of different meanings. Like if somebody says awareness to somebody who doesn't study Buddhism, it's like yeah, oh, awareness, I have awareness. But in Buddhism, it's like enlightenment. It means enlightenment. Yeah. And it all could also mean typical awareness, right? So presence and mindfulness, it's the same. I want to say that when you have presence, you're mindful. And when you're being mindful, you're present. Right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah. And when those two are connected completely, you're living in awareness. It's a higher state. Higher state. It's when we're not getting swept. So just like we're going to do now, noticing our body, noticing our thoughts again. So let's take a moment. You don't have to use the crystal, but if you like to just have something to gaze at, by all means, you could have it resting there. And we'll find ourselves in a nice tall posture again. Crown of the head lifting. Notice how your body feels in this moment. And allow yourselves to breathe in full breath through both nostrils. Bring the breath all the way down to the belly. And then as you exhale, exhale out through the mouth. And ask yourselves, just feel open like the sky when you ask yourselves, where is my mind? What am I thinking right now? And as you start to notice your thoughts, look at them one by one as they appear. If you have thoughts that are overlapping and all arising at the same time, look at them all at once. Breathe full breath. What am I thinking right now? Let yourself think. This is not about fighting. Let yourself think. But don't get lost in the thought. Don't follow it. Notice it. The more you notice it, the more you accept. You don't follow it. Suddenly the thoughts coming in and out are just arisings, like a sky holding stars. As every thought you catch about your children, about your family, about chores, about responsibilities about your own mind, about your judgments, whatever arises, see that thought like you would see a star in the sky. Use your imagination to feel as if you are the sky itself. The sky does not reject a star or judge a star. The sky provides the space for the star to be. Imagine that the space of the sky, the expansiveness, can hold as many or as little of those stars that appear. And imagine that you can breathe in that big open space into the very center of your being. So maybe if you have a tight hold or a feeling of your body, it starts to feel lighter. And then as you breathe out, you follow the spaciousness between the stars. And you let your exhale go further and further out. And as you inhale, you breathe in that space. And your body feels light, almost like it's mist. And you exhale into space. And then as you inhale, feel yourself coming back into the form of your body, the solidity. And then as you exhale, you send the spaciousness out. And you notice the stars. And then you breathe in and out. And we'll bring ourselves back into our space. So this is something that I recommend for people to do, relating all of our thoughts to something like the sky, because I was saying something about our true nature. It's been described often, our wisdom, our true nature is vast like the sky, and anything can appear in it. So right away, if we start to relate to ourselves as like, oh, when it comes down to it, some of us are a book group on Sunday nights, and we read about this. Mingyur Rinpoche talks about the science of the mind and how everything can be really broken down. They talk about particles and atoms and subatoms and how everything comes down to actually light, And then we start to realize, oh my gosh, that is us. Even though, on a relative level, we are a solid being, everything can be broken down. So if you looked out into the sky and you imagine this, the vastness of space, allowing the stars to appear with no problem and no judgment, it's really not very different from what appears in us, in our minds. So then the beginning here, the sample, it's really about working to let go of self-judgment so that we could just keep showing up, you know, and keep appearing. And to know that it's not like we're asked to chop out thoughts. We're not going into an emptiness in a nihilistic way, like big black hole where nothing exists. We go into space knowing that there are arisings. So I'll bring ourselves back here and ask if anybody has questions.